So we're here at the Bradford Road Gasometer on a cold day in January 2024, and already the demolition has started. They've took the dome, the actual tank, they've cut all the top off, and it's sort of like sagging in like material really. I suppose the next stage will be the actual framework round the edges. A sorry sight and a Manchester iconic landmark about to disappear. Hello, my name is Martin, welcome back to another video. A cobble street, a rare sight these days. In the clamour to modernise Britain, Manchester, we're losing a lot of our industrial past. Such a crime was committed just round here where we lost the Bradford Road Gasometer, and that's what this video is about. This beast climbed the beast. Let me tell you where we are. So first off, you may have heard of the city of Bradford. Well, Manchester has got an area called Bradford, so let's not confuse the two, because we're going to talk a lot about Bradford and Bradford Road and the Bradford Road Gasometer. So Bradford, as I've shown you on the maps, we're in East Manchester. The whole area was massively industrial, from power stations to coal mines, can you believe, to massive factories producing engineering products, boilers, all kinds of things. Oh, locomotives. Diesel locomotives, Bay of Peacock and steam locomotives. So it's got a massive industrial history. On this map from the 1830s, I've sort of circled in purple the coal pits and the collieries, and you can see there's quite a few. For the more astute amongst you, you see the red X at the left hand side there, that's Shooter's Brook running open. But the whole area is like a honeycomb of mine workings, which later caused many problems. But obviously back in the day, in the 1800s, with the proximity of coal, you can build industry. Now, probably the biggest and the most famous of these local collieries was Bradford Colliery. And also inevitability, where you've got a colliery and you've got coal, you're going to have a power station. So then you've got Stewart Street Power Station, which sprung up as well in the area. All gone without a trace. This painting, this wonderful painting, kind of sums up the gasworks and Stewart Street Power Station. I love this painting. Now in the area, it's famous for the Co-op Live Arena, one of the biggest arenas in Europe, I think, music venues, and also you've got Manchester City Stadium, the Etihad Stadium here. So early in the 1870s, it was apparent to the Manchester Corporation Gas Department that the rapid increase in sales of gas was outstripping the productive capacity of their combined Rochdale Road, Droylsden and Gaythorne gasworks, which was at that time 9 million cubic feet of gas per day. It was decided to construct a new works in the Bradford Road area, and the somewhat unusual course was taken as advertising in the press, inviting plans for new works with awards ranging from up to £500 for the best design. Now, I've just read you something there from a small report about the Bradford Works, and what they also mentioned was the reason the site was chosen was because of the proximity of coal in the area from mainly Bradford Colliery and the railway that ran through the site as well. They also mentioned the River Medlock providing quantities of water. Gas-powered car, anybody? Right, so Roy, you've brought us to a little tiny cobble street here in the back end of nowhere. Why have you picked here?
Well, we're in the heart of what was the gasworks. So on my right here was a social club for the gasworks. To the left of me, we can spin the camera around and show you in a minute, was down towards the Holder number 1 site. And behind me, new viaduct streets, which linked the various sites together. And there's obviously the railway there as well.
Okay, so this is the site today of our gasworks. You'll see there's a railway line going down here. You've got New Viaduct Street as well running alongside of it. And I just want you to clock Saxon Street and the way it runs here. Let's turn time back to that map I showed you earlier. There you go, Bradford Road Gasworks. There's the railway line and it kind of splits the site in two. And of course there is New Viaduct Street, which we can still walk along and we can still see the railway line. Saxon Street is here, and you'll see it carried on here and it ran right into the heart of the site. The two holders that we're concerned with, well, the main holder that we're concerned with is this one here. This was the last standing one, and this is the images I'm showing of it being demolished. There was another one here. I'm talking about the rise and fall type. There and there. This one went just over a year ago, and this one is what we're concentrating on now. Just a few things to note. You've got Phillips Park Cemetery here. You've got the River Medlock there, which goes in a culvert now underneath where the gasworks used to be and comes out over here. Not to be confused with the Ashton Canal that runs along there as well. And this was an area we called Mordor, if you remember from the early Medlock videos. But there you go, Bradford Road Gasworks, and we're concerned with that gasometer there, the last standing one. I like this plan as well because on this one they've actually shown the River Medlock and the way it goes underneath the site, and that's the way it runs still today. We've done quite a few videos there. And there you go, Britain from above, 1940s, and you can see the site there in great detail, see all the buildings and everything. I've put on New Viaduct Street for you because we're looking at a slightly different angle here. The gasometers, you see there were two of the gasometers. The one that we're filming being demolished is number 2. Okay, so here's a bit of detail for you gasworks junkies out there. A plan of the Bradford Road Works. If you look to the top there where it says gas holder A, that is actually the one that's been demolished. That's the older one. Just a little bit of detail there for you. I don't know if you can read the key down the side, but that will tell you what everything was there. You can pause that if you want. But if we just look over to number 1, you'll see the big man holder next to it. Now that's the solid type of gasometer. Oh, well, I'm saying that. It's the one that didn't rise and fall. It's the one, they actually had a big piston inside. The other two, number 1 and number 2, were that type that rose and fell inside a framework. Now, guess who got inside one of these man gas holders? Yes, can you believe Roy? It was a decommissioned one. And that's inside, and it had a big piston that rose and fell inside, depending on how much gas was in it. That's about as much as I can explain to you. And MAN stands for that. It must be a German design, and so that's what MAN stands for, and that's why they call them man holders, or you can just call them big Coke cans if you like. Now, little side story for you. Earlier on I showed you a map and I said, look at this, it's like a honeycomb in this area. All the mining work that took place, all these collieries and mines and stuff. One of the biggest culprits was Bradford Colliery. That was the biggest mine in the area. The workings extended for miles out around this area of Manchester. And it caused subsidence. And it was the reason it closed. Now, we found a little clip in doing the research for this video. Found a little clip, so I'm going to have to... it's from the late 1950s, early 60s. So I'm going to have to voice it over for you in 1960s style. But it's a fascinating clip. And again, this subsidence is the reason why Bradford Colliery had to close. But they were paying out so much compensation to the residents in the area, that is what made it actually unprofitable, and they had to cease workings in the end. It closed down around about 1967. Okay, so just allow me to throw another curveball at you. Earlier on we mentioned that in the area now we've got Manchester City Stadium, the Etihad Stadium, Manchester City Football Club. Well, it's built on top of or part of where Bradford Colliery used to stand. Now I've got this amazing picture, and it's available online, of them building the stadium, and here you can see they've capped the shaft, a massive cap over the shaft. Now that is in the corner of the car park now. So if you go into Man City Stadium and you park in the top corner nearest Alan Turing Way, you're parking over the top of that shaft, and it was 2,500 foot deep. I just love that picture because it's almost surreal, that massive black concrete pad over the shaft, and obviously now everything that was there is hidden forever. And there you go, that's the site of number 2 holder being prepared. In the distance there, just where the X is now, that is Briscoe Lane, for my understanding, and Phillips Park to the right. Fantastic photo. This would have been around about 1908. And of course, when it was built, they were very, very proud of it. So why did we have these gas holders? Well, again, from a layperson point of view, we used to have gas works. You may or may not have heard of those. And what they did was they made town gas. Nowadays we get 40% of our gas from the North Sea and other imports. But back in the day they made town gas, and it was a byproduct of coal. So they burnt coal and they extracted to get the gas. And it was a very toxic process, and the gas produced was very, very toxic. But ultimately it lit street lamps, and you could do your cooking on it. There were 3 main gasworks in Manchester. You had Gaythorne Gasworks, Bradford Road Gasworks, what we're talking about, and you had Gold Street / Rochdale Road Gasworks. And of course we went in there, didn't we? And we managed to see a little bit of what remained of the Rochdale Road Gasworks. All this has gone, by the way, now, gone forever. It's now, they're building apartments there, can you believe? But very, very toxic process, these gasworks, and people died, men died in the process. They were just such an unhealthy job. I think on one of the videos we made, we told how they got free coffins when they got the job, because they weren't expected to live long. Anyway, I remember back in I remember being a kid in the early 70s, and my grandma and my mum talking about town gas and being converted onto natural gas, as they called it, which was North Sea gas. But I think with the advent of North Sea gas, we didn't need to store it anymore. It was just literally in high pressure pipes. It came ashore and it just went round the network, rather than having to be manufactured and stored and sent out as required. And that was the demise of these big gas holders. They just modernised the system. Right, back to our aerial shot, and I just want to take you down to New Viaduct Street today, and I want to show you Saxon Street, or the remains of Saxon Street. Right, so this is New Viaduct Street. Believe it or not, the Medlock is underneath this bridge, and the Ashton Canal, and down here is an area that some of you may remember from the early videos that I called Mordor. Anyway, it's down here. Man City is over there. I'll give you a view of that in a minute. But the gasworks was split in 2. We had holder number 1 over here on this side of the road here, where you can see the pipes in the distance, and holder number 2, the one that was recently pulled down, was over, you can't see it, but it was over that way there. The whole works was split in 2 by a little street that ran underneath here called Saxon Street. Can you imagine the kids that grow up with the gasometers in the background? I've got paintings of Angel Meadow with those massive gasometers from Gold Street that dominated the playground. Ugly, but something you'll never forget, I think. There's something about them, weren't there? And like I said earlier, no need for gasometers apparently anymore. We just have this pipe network where everything's kind of under pressure and not necessarily stored. And so for that reason, because the gas is now just under pressure all the time in pipes, we very rarely see the gasometers, or I've been a long time since I've seen one like that on the right there, where you see the tank quite up in the actual roll cage. That's what I'm going to call it, the housing cage. Most of the time you see it like this, with the tank low down at the bottom, completely empty like a shell.
I've always had a thing for these gas sites. I grew up with them around me. You know, I have visited a number of these sites around the country over the last few years. But this thing was a staple of the landscape over here in East Manchester. 1908 they laid the first foundation stone, and obviously, as Martin said previously, demolished 2024, the year we're in now. So that's 116 years this thing lay stood amongst the gasworks here at Bradford. It's long gone. It was made so everyone would saw it as this just big hunk of metal, and what it was a column guided holder. That was the frame that most people would relate to. There was 3 lifts on this thing, so 3 tanks that lifted, 3 tanks that could rise and fall, interlock within each other, okay, and a tank below it, okay. The tank that held the water was constructed of brick. It comprised of 4 million bricks, can you believe it? Very, very deep at 43 foot. That water was below ground, below the actual tanks. 10 million cubic feet of gas, town gas.
I love this picture, a bit of detail on the rolling mechanism, the tank within the framework, how it rolled up the framework. Another fact for you, the frame was 169 foot high, but because the tank was a dome, when the tank was fully extended, that was 182 foot high to the top of the crown of the dome. Now, inevitably, as they got rid of the tank was disposed of, or we were left with the shell of the framework, and ultimately they began to cut up the framework, and we managed to catch that in its various stages as well. So there you go, a couple of cuts there, witnessing history in the making. We're getting a few funny looks because people are thinking what they're doing, but obviously when that's gone, it's gone. It stood there for donkey's years, so I want to record it. Right, so here's the bit of the show where you either approve or you don't. I'm going to show you some pictures. I think they're very, very valid, but they were got a little bit naughty because someone climbed it. Tell us about that. So I'm asking him when it was. I think it's significantly quite a few years ago, maybe a decade or something like that.
But yeah, I decided it was a good idea to climb this because I think the views were good. You could see it all around, 360 view of Manchester and the surrounding areas. And I managed to capture quite a good sunset shot, which we'll put up. And you could see the Holder number 1 site, and you could see into town as the sun was setting. I found it quite surreal, stood up there watching the world go by, and I waited for the sun to set. Yeah, and you get a 360 view of the city, heading out towards Eastlands and back into town, and I managed to capture the sun setting.
Did you get any hassle?
Not hassle really. I mean, I've been down to this site a few times now, and I have had a bit of hassle here and there on other occasions. Of course, it's protected infrastructure, it's live gas sites. Even though it's decommissioned, it's still connected to the grid and there's stuff around it So you've got to be careful. Not the sort of average Sunday stroll that you should be considering.
It was in the name of art. So if we get any letters from Outraged of Gorton or Manchester, we do apologise, but it was all in the name of art to bring these wonderful pictures of something that doesn't exist anymore. There you go. Now, here's my brush with it, with the gasometer. I can't compete with Roy, I didn't climb it, but back in 2018 I filmed a video about Victorian Mill, which is in the local area, Miles Platting. I ended up going on the roof and I unwittingly captured both of them stood together because obviously one of them went a few years ago. So I actually got this footage here of me on top of Victoria Mill, and you can see both of them there. And then also at the time I was filming the early medlocks, and I took a flyer. I thought, right, what can I do? I'm going to try and get the drone up at side of the gasometer. So I went off the main road, stood at the side of the main road and literally flew up at the side of it to try and get some footage. I was crapping myself, but I managed to get this as well. And so with fire and great metallic jaws, the demolition team worked throughout the months and reduced this steel giant down to nothing. After standing for 116 years, all that was left was scrap metal. So when we did that original footage of them pulling the gasometer down, that was like spring 2024. Here we are, October 2024, and it's gone. It's like it was never here. You wouldn't know it was here apart from a big sort of like brown gravel patch where it was. Quite sad really, considering that generations grew up with that thing, but I suppose it had no future. Just a... So, RIP the gasometer.
I know, 116 years, RIP.
Is that what it was, 116 years?
Yeah, 1908 when they first started.
Wow. So there you go. Anyway, hope you liked that little video about an iconic Manchester structure. There were more of them, there weren't just that one, there were others, but we thought we'd mourn the loss of this one because we both knew it. Thanks to Roy for all the wonderful photos in your endeavours, and legal or not illegal endeavours, to get us those great photos. And it was kind of his baby, so a lot of the information and the facts and the figures came from Roy. Thank you.
Thank you indeed. Thanks for watching.
Right, so thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.